Hello, and welcome to my talk on engineering responsive governance. My name is Shauna Gordon-McKeon, and for a while now, I've been working on an application called Kyburn. Kyburn is a website built to help communities manage themselves and their resources in flexible, dynamic, non-hierarchical ways. Communities can set up their governance any way they like, and it can be different for different parts of the communities. The backend is designed to work with any kind of resource, so even though there's only 3 right now, forums, documents, and lists or tables, the possibilities are pretty much endless. And while we currently only have a few different decision-making processes, such as simple approval, loose or strict consensus, and majority voting, again, there's the potential to add many different ways to make decisions as well. But having lots of options isn't really enough, because no matter how smart and careful you are, whatever option you pick is probably going to be wrong. Or maybe you get it exactly right, but eventually the community changes or the environment changes, and now it's off again. So you need ways to adapt your governance fairly and collectively. And that's what I mean by responsive governance, the ability to change. There's a lot that can influence whether governance is responsive, but I'm going to focus mostly on 2 things, contestability and knowledge sharing. By contestability, I mean that there need to be mechanisms for people to contest or challenge existing governance. It can take a while to realize that a rule or system isn't a good fit, but we can make the process happen a little faster by giving people avenues to talk about it. And by knowledge gathering, I mean the ability to accumulate community knowledge, both about the general principles of governance as well as your specific community needs. And we can help that process along by providing spaces for discussion and knowledge sharing. One of the things Kyburn does is capture every action on the site in an action object. This includes actions like writing a comment or editing a document, or governance actions like suspending members or selecting new leaders. It also includes actions like changing the rules themselves. It's all there and visible for the community. These actions are searchable. Because every action is recorded in this way, it's a lot of different stuff to search through, and it can sometimes be hard to find the information you want. We're working on improving that, but for now you can find actions that are waiting on decisions, actions that people want feedback on before they take them, actions of a particular type, and more. Of course, if we just captured the action data only, we might miss important context. So users also have the ability to write a short note with any action that they take. Every action also has a discussion space built in. So the note on an action might just be the beginning of a conversation. People have the ability to propose actions, that is to say, hey, I want to take this action, what do you think? At any point, they can go ahead and take the action, but in the meantime, they're listening to community members, getting feedback, and maybe they end up deciding that they want to do something differently. The community can also set conditions on actions. For instance, maybe anyone can take the action, become a member, but there needs to be a consensus of existing members to let them in. The actions discussion space is a way for folks to talk informally while making these formal decisions. Let's go through an example. Say a community has placed a filter on posts and comments that if they contain certain slurs, it automatically gets rejected. That sounds useful, but sometimes people include slurs in their content because they're talking critically about the usage of slurs, or maybe they're sharing their personal experience. So maybe a poster has this exact thing happen to her, she's sharing her personal experience and it gets auto-rejected. So she says, what if we change this rule from if it contains a slur, it's always rejected, to if it contains a slur, it's always reviewed. Right now, she could do this manually by requesting a rule change and leaving a link to the first action, that rejected action, in the note for the new one. But it would be nice to make this whole process easier. You could let someone click propose rule change right from an action, and this would create a link between the two so you could see what was inspiring the governance change. This is just one simple idea. Of course, there are probably other and better ways to make this kind of reasoning more visible. But I think regardless, we do need to make the reasoning visible so that it can be discussed as a community. I want to switch gears now to talk about knowledge building. One of the big challenges of Kyburn is how many options it provides you, which can present a little bit of a paradox of choice, where too many choices makes it harder to choose anything. And I don't think this is unique to Kyburn or to governance tech in general. I've been a part of a number of governance discussions, both for my own groups and as a facilitator for other groups. And the sheer variety of options once you peel yourself away from the standard top-down approach is, well, it's liberating, but it's also very intimidating. Giving people too many options to handle isn't empowering, it's paralyzing, and people aren't going to change their governance if they can't pick what to change it to. So a big part of what we want to do with Kyburn is to support knowledge building and knowledge sharing. Instead of requiring every group to build their governance system from scratch, we have a bunch of templates in our templates library. These templates cover different areas that a community might care about. So there are leadership templates, membership templates, resource templates. And you can try them out in different ways. You can apply a tightly moderated template to one form and an anything goes template to another, and then compare how they work out. There's discussion space in each of the templates in the library, so people from different communities can share their thoughts about the various templates. Did it work for them? Did it not work for them? Did they read an interesting article about it and they wanted to share it? And that discussion can happen. Applying a template within a community is also an action itself. So in addition to this cross-community discussion space, which is a bit more abstract, there's also space to debate, hey, should we be applying this specific template right now in our community? It's also worth noting that these templates just set things up in certain ways. They don't lock anything in or set anything in stone. You can change the rules again anytime you like. So it can be altered to fit a community's needs. Again, we're still actively developing this, hoping to make it even more helpful and usable. We want to add ability to mix and match parts of templates, tagging, better searching. So if you have thoughts on this, I would love to hear it. Finally, I want to talk briefly about the idea of transitions. You've discussed the problems in your community, you've shared knowledge about different solutions, and you've picked one, and now it's time to implement, to transition to the new system. Transition is a period where things are unstable, and it's not clear if change is going to stick or what its impacts will be. And we can see this at the level of national politics when we worry about the transfer of power between leaders, or when we worry that a newly democratic country is going to backslide into autocracy. But it's really an issue at every level. And I might be tempted to say, well, this system is encoded, so people can't seize power away from a machine. But that raises two questions for me. First, are digital governance systems in danger of going too far the other way? Is there a benefit to the way that transitions can be halted or rolled back, or the way that they tend to take a lot of time? Should we be making it easier for communities to slow or revert governance changes within a certain period or after enough people have changed their minds about it? The second question is more broad. Transitions to me are about more than just rules. They're also about people's hopes and fears around their community. So how can we help people process the transition collectively? I don't have any videos to show you on this one because it's not something we've started building around. The question is too fuzzy even to experiment with. So again, I would really love people's thoughts on this. What makes a governance transition easier out there in the real world? And how do we translate that to digital spaces? So that's a very brief introduction to responsive governance and how it's implemented on Kyburn.org. If you're interested in hearing more about contestability in particular, I had another talk on Wednesday, which you can go check out. Either you can find it through the website, or if you go to these linked slides, there's now a link in them. If you have any feedback from me, thoughts, I'd love to hear them. If you want to try out Kyburn.org, please do. We are actively looking for communities to beta test the site with. So if you have a community or project you think would be a good fit, especially please reach out. My email is listed here. You can also check out the project's repositories on GitHub. And finally, if you're interested, I have a newsletter on the intersection of technology and governance. And if you like this talk, you will probably like the newsletter. That's it. Thanks for watching.